Have you ever thought about what people in the past imagined our world would look like today? Well, we're about to take a trip back in time over 4 decades to look at this really remarkable 1978 report that tried to do just that, predict the future of technology. And honestly, what they got right is fascinating, what they missed is just as telling, and it all kind of holds up a mirror to the world we're building right now. So, right out of the gate, the author, Walter S. Baer, starts with this incredibly humble line. He basically says, look, this is probably going to be wrong. But as we're about to see, even though he couldn't predict every little thing, his vision for the future turned out to be surprisingly, and in some cases, wildly accurate. And here it is. This is our message in a bottle from 1978. The actual Rand Corporation report, Telecommunications Technology in the 1980s, all preserved on this little sheet of microfilm. Now, you have to remember, 1978 was the world of mainframe computers, a world where you'd bring a stack of punch cards to a special room and just wait for a printout. It was a totally different technological plan. So to really appreciate just how on the money these predictions were, we first have to put ourselves in their shoes. We've got to understand the world they were living in because the gap between then and now, it's just massive. I mean, look at this. On one side, you have 1978, computers that filled an entire room, physical punch cards, clunky old telex machines, typewriters. And on the other side is our world. The power of that giant mainframe, it now fits in your pocket and connects you to literally everyone and everything. That jump is exactly what makes their foresight so incredible. So what was the secret sauce? How did they see it coming? Well, the report correctly zeroed in on the single most important driver of the whole revolution, the microprocessor. Or, as they put it, the computer on a chip. The report laid it all out. They were tracking this exponential growth in computing power. They saw chips go from about 5,000 components in the early 70s to 18,000 by 78. And they correctly forecast that it would just explode, going way past 100,000 by the late 80s. This understanding of what we now call Moore's Law, that was their key. They knew computing was about to become unbelievably powerful and unbelievably cheap. This one quote might be the most profound thing in the whole report. Just think about it. They lived in a time when computers were astronomically expensive, and yet they could see a future where processing power would become so cheap that it was, in his words, essentially free. That one shift in thinking, right there, is what makes almost every single thing we take for granted today possible. So, if computing power is basically free, what does that change first? Well, the report predicted it would completely flip the workplace on its head, moving us from a world of paper to a world of pixels. And get this, they imagined the intelligent word processor. Now, the genius idea here wasn't just a fancy typewriter. It was that a draft is stored as a series of bits in memory. That completely separates the act of writing from the act of printing for the very first time. You could finally write, edit, and save all without ever touching a piece of paper. This is the granddaddy of every single document app we use. And from that simple, powerful idea of storing text as bits, you can draw a perfectly straight line from that old typewriter to all the ways we create digital content today. They even took it a step further, describing how you could send these digital documents over communication lines for someone else to review. I mean, they were literally describing networked collaboration 40 years ago. So what did that automated office of theirs actually turn into? Well, today's smart office. A 2019 source shows us a world with things like wireless charging, smart agendas, even biometric security, things they probably couldn't have dreamed of. The 1978 vision planted the seed, and this wild, integrated, intelligent environment is the forest that grew from it. Okay, but the revolution wasn't just for our 9-to-5. The report also saw a massive transformation coming to the home, all built around a single home communications terminal. And you have to love the name they gave it, Mother. It stood for Multiple Output Telecommunications Home End Resources. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea behind it was pure genius. A single integrated hub in your living room for all your entertainment, information, and communication. So what was in their all-in-one mother system? Pretty much all the big hits of the era, right? A color TV, a VCR, video games, pay TV, all of it hooked up through the phone line. The parts themselves might seem a little quaint now, but the core idea of converging all our media and communication into one central hub, they were spot on.
So, how does that vision stack up against the 2019 reality? Well, today's smart home is so much more integrated, so much more ambient. It's not just about what's on TV anymore. It's about the house generating its own energy, your fridge knowing what you need, smart locks, even augmented reality. The central hub idea was right, but the reality became a far more complex and personal ecosystem.
Okay, so for our last part here, let's look at what the 1978 report missed, because that's super important too. And then let's see what today's visionaries are telling us are the next big challenges on the horizon. Let's give them credit where it's due. The report talked about things like electronic mail, video teleconferencing, and electronic funds transfer. They saw those things coming, but they missed the biggest game changers. They saw the individual computers, but not the World Wide Web that would connect them all. They didn't see social media, and they absolutely couldn't have predicted the sheer scale and personal nature of mobile computing. Now, let's jump to the predictions from 2019. The new frontiers on this list sound like pure science fiction, right? Advanced robotics, nanorobots doing surgery inside our bodies, bioelectronics to boost our brain power. It feels a lot like 1978 all over again. We're standing on the edge of another massive technological wave. And if you think that stuff is just talk, well, follow the money. This chart shows the global investment in quantum technology. Just like the microprocessor was the intense focus of research back then, quantum computing is the focus now. Billions and billions of dollars are being poured into building that next revolution. And this really brings us full circle. Looking back at this 1978 report, it's so much more than just a history lesson. It's a mirror. Those visionaries, with their punch cards and mainframes, did their absolute best to imagine the world that we are living in right now. So, as we stand here with our smartphones and our global networks, the real question is, what world are we imagining now? And what will people 40 years from today think of our predictions?